Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe that I'd like to share with you. It is called Hungarian potato biscuits, Krumplis Pogácsa. What you will need for this recipe is 2½ cups of pre-sifted all-purpose flour, 1¼ teaspoon salt, 3 tablespoons of margarine, 2 whole eggs, 1 egg yolk, 2 medium potatoes, 1/4 cup of lukewarm milk, and for the yeast mixture, you will need 2 teaspoons of traditional active dry yeast, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. So what I did was, in a medium bowl, I stirred together 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. And so I have prepared here a bowl with risen yeast. So I've got that prepared, and that's ready to go into the biscuit recipe. And then I peeled and cut potatoes into small pieces and then cooked them in water with 1/4 teaspoon of salt until they were soft. And then I drained off the water from the potatoes and I mashed them with a handheld masher. So, and then I lightly beat 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk in a bowl with a fork. So I have this all prepared. So I have the mashed potatoes, and I've used white potatoes. Those are the best for making the biscuits, potato biscuits. And then I've got my 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk prepared, and I've lightly beaten it with a fork, and that's ready to go into the flour. So what I've got here is a large bowl, and it has the flour and the salt, and I've mixed it with a wooden spoon to get the salt. Going to be mixing that together using the salt. And so I'll add it to the flour, and I'll just start mixing that together. And this was another family favorite recipe of my mom and grandmother's. So once you've done that, you've mixed the salt into the flour, then you start adding your other ingredients that I mentioned in the recipe. So I'm going to add the margarine. So I'm going to make a well. I'm going to make a well in the bowl. And I'm going to add the margarine, 3 tablespoons. And then I'm going to add my mashed potatoes into the center. And then I'm going to add my egg, 1 egg, whole egg, and 1 egg yolk, lightly beaten, into the well. And then I'm going to add my yeast, risen yeast. Then I'm just going to, initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir together the ingredients, and then I'm going to knead it by hand. So first of all, you want to get all of this stuff, all of these ingredients mixed together. It's just easier to begin it with a wooden spoon, and that way it's just not sticky. That's sticky when you get in there with your hands. So what I'll do is I will continue stirring this, and then I will knead the dough together by hand, and then I will come back and I will show you the next process in preparing these biscuits. Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I am preparing a family favorite recipe of my grandmother's and mother's, and it is called Hungarian potato biscuit, Krumplis Pogácsa. So where I left off was that I made a well in the center of the flour and then added the margarine, mashed potatoes, lightly beaten egg mixture, and the risen yeast. And then using a wooden spoon, I gradually mixed all of the ingredients together. And then I continued to knead it together by hand in the large bowl. And one of the tips that I have mentioned on my website, irinkaskitchen.com, is that you lift the dough mound and sprinkle flour in the bowl and then replace the dough mound in the bowl so that it's easier to remove after you take it out of its bowl, ready to roll out onto a floured pastry board. So then what I did was I rolled out the dough using a floured rolling pin to about 1/2 inch thickness, and then I fold the dough vertically and then horizontally and knead it together. So I've already done that twice. And what I've done was I let the dough rest for 15 minutes and then I repeated the rolling, kneading, and resting. So I've already done it twice. So I'm going to do it for the third time. I'm just going to show you how I would do this process. So I've got the dough mound on a floured pastry board, and what I've done is it's rested, so it's kind of risen. The yeast has kind of made the dough mound rise. So you want to make sure that your rolling pin is floured so that it doesn't stick. So I've got a bowl of flour here ready. So I'm just going to roll this out into about a 1 inch thickness, and you can see it's kind of rising from the yeast. This is really good. The traditional dry yeast mixture is the best to use. Make sure that your yeast is fresh when you buy it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over once, and the dough is starting to get a bit sticky because it's been sitting on the pastry board, so you want to put a little bit of flour underneath it so it doesn't stick, and then you fold it over once over like this again, vertical and horizontal, and then you just leave it like that for about 15 minutes. So fold it over vertically, horizontally once, and then just let the dough rest for another 15 minutes. I've done this already twice, so it should be done 3 times. So I'm going to let the dough mound rest for about 15 minutes more, and then I'll come back, I'll roll out the dough, and then I'll cut out the dough into circular shapes, so it's for the shape of the biscuits. Welcome back again to Irinka's Kitchen. What I've been doing is I've been folding the dough and rolling, folding, and kneading, and allowing the dough to rest for 15-minute intervals. So this is the last fold, and I demonstrated to you what it would be like to do that. And now I'm going to roll out the dough, and I'm going to cut out the dough with I'm just using a plastic glass this size, this perimeter. You can make your biscuits smaller than this if you want to, but I'm going to be using this size for I'm using a plastic glass. You can use a cookie cutter. I mentioned that you can use a circular cookie cutter, or you can use the top of a plastic cup like this to do that. Just make sure that you dip the cup into some flour before you cut out the shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to roll the dough out, and you want to roll it out to about, and it's nice, it's starting to rise. So I've got some flour in a bowl here ready to go, so I'm just going to make sure my rolling pin is rolled out, or pardon me, floured. And then roll your dough out to about 1 inch thickness. And then I've got some lightly greased pan here, and I'm going to cut out the dough and I'm going to put them on the pan. So I've got a little container here with flour in it. And I'm going to start cutting out my biscuits. Now if you can get a hold of some circular cookie cutters, you know, like made of steel, then you can use those. I'm just going to pre-cut them, and then I'll put them on the lightly greased baking sheet. So I'm just going to cut them out. Make sure that you dip them in flour, your cup in flour, so it doesn't stick. And then using a knife, just a flat knife, just lift them out and then put them on the just pull them out like that. Put them on your cookie sheet, and I'll just show you in a minute what this looks like. And just put them on your baking sheet. Make sure that the bottom of your pastry board is floured really well. And the dough gets kind of warms up pretty quickly, so you have to work with them, work with it pretty quickly. And just pull it apart like that. Put them on your baking sheet. Gets quite sticky. And put them on your pan. This one didn't turn out that well, so basically what you're doing is you're putting them on a cookie sheet. You're putting your biscuits on a cookie sheet, and you need to grease the pan. So I'm going to continue doing that. And what you would need to do is take one whole egg and lightly beat it up with a fork until it's frothy, and then you want to brush your biscuits, the tops of your biscuits, before you put them in the oven. So I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to bake the biscuits for about 25 to 30 minutes until they're golden brown. So I will get back to you when the biscuits are all done. So make sure that you brush them lightly before you put them in the oven, so that they have that golden, sort of golden color to them. Gives them a sort of really nice shiny golden shine to them when you take them out of the oven. Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I was preparing a Hungarian potato biscuit, Krumplis Pogácsa. It's my mom and grandma's favorite recipe for biscuits. And so what I'd like to do is show you what this recipe looks like out of the oven. So I baked it for approximately 30 minutes until the biscuits were brown, golden brown. And this is what the biscuits look like when they come out of the oven. So you can actually serve this, you can just eat this as like this. You can cut it in half and put some butter on it, and you can put some meat between it, like ham or whatever, or just put some butter on it, cut it in half, and eat it that way, or just eat it just as a whole piece like that, like bites of it. So it can be served with sort of a main dish too. You can put this on the table for included with a main dish, or it can be served on its own. So what you do really need to remember, and there's also another tip that I added on the my instructions, which you can find on arenkaskitchen.com. It's important that you sprinkle flour and on top of the dough mound and on the bottom of the pastry board continually as you're rolling it out when you're cutting out the biscuits, because the dough becomes quite sticky when it stands at room temperature. So it's important that you have a bowl of flour ready, and you just sprinkle it on the top and bottom when you're rolling it out. It just makes it easier to work with the dough because it does get quite sticky. And also when you're cutting out the biscuits, make sure that you dip the top of your glass rim each time. And it's important also, as you're cutting the biscuits out, that you put them on a lightly greased pan immediately. So cut them out one by one and place them on the cookie sheet as soon as you can, because if you leave the cut out biscuits on there and then try to remove all of them, the dough also starts getting soft. So you want to make sure that you take them off one by one and place them on the cookie sheet as soon as you can. So that's a really important tip to remember, so that you don't have problems working with the dough. Otherwise, it is a fantastic recipe, and I hope that you enjoy serving this to your family and friends. Until next time, bon appetit and jó étvágyat. So, as I said, you can contact me at irene@arenkaskitchen.com if you have any questions about any of the recipes. The detailed recipe is on my website for more detailed instructions. Thank you. Have a nice day.